7 shocking things Satan can't do that will leave you speechless. Few knew what truly happened that night. The air crackled with tension as shadows danced beneath the flickering torches. In the heart of the ancient wilderness, whispers of a battle raged, one that would make the strongest hearts tremble. You see, this wasn't just any ordinary night. It was the night when a humble shepherd faced a foe unlike any other, the very embodiment of chaos and darkness, Satan himself. Imagine the scene. The moon hung low, casting an eerie glow over the jagged rocks. David, young and brave, stood alone against the looming figure. He had heard the tale stories of how Satan sowed despair, twisted hope, and snuffed out faith. But what few knew was he was about to uncover hidden truths. Facts about Satan that would leave anyone speechless. First, he couldn't create life. The demons, though fearsome, could only manipulate what was already there. The earth was silent. The stars blinked above, as if even they struggled to witness this clash. David's heart raced in his chest, a tight knot of fear and courage. Second, he couldn't touch you if your faith was unwavering. David clutched his slingshot like a lifeline. The air felt heavy, oppressive, but deep within him flickered a flame of belief that Satan could never extinguish. Every soul that believed was a fortress, unyielding against the darkness. Third, Satan couldn't understand love, that foreign concept which baffled him. The warmth of brotherhood and the bond to God were shields against his cold, slithering temptations. David's thoughts drifted to his flock, to the kindness that filled his heart, a stark contrast to the void where Satan thrived. The fourth truth? He couldn't cultivate true joy. Pleasure was a mere illusion to him. On the wind, David heard the distant laughter of children, echoing through the valley. It was pure, untouched by the bitterness that Satan offered. Those innocent sounds ignited something triumphant within him. Fifth, Satan had no power unless it was given. The thought struck David like lightning. He realized that the choice of surrender lay within. Freedom began from within when one refused to capitulate. His pulse quickened, he was on the precipice of revelation, of victory. Sixth, he couldn't stand the sound of praise. The moment you lifted your voice in joy or worship, he recoiled. David recalled his father's songs, praises that lifted them from the darkest valleys. Those melodies danced in the air, an invisible shield, protecting him. Finally, the seventh shocking truth was that Satan was terrified of the light. Like a cockroach scuttling away from the sun, he fled from truth. David's fists clenched. He had spent his entire life preparing for this momentous confrontation that transcended mere physicality. Yet, as the tension mounted, questions loomed. How long could this battle rage? Would the truths uncovered be enough to withstand the storm brewing in front of him? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the moonlight poured down like silver onto the ground where David stood, his heart surged with resolve. The figure of Satan loomed in front of him, shrouded in darkness, an embodiment of fear and despair. With each revelation that had illuminated David's spirit, a new strength flowed through him like a rushing river, but the weight of the imminent conflict was undeniable. In the stillness, as the world around him seemed to hold its breath, time stretched. Shadows twisted and writhed at Satan's feet, whispering promises of defeat, of surrender. But David, armed with faith and the truths he had unearthed, began to see not just the enemy before him, but the essence of his own spirit, the unwavering light that had guided him as a shepherd. The adversary took a step forward, his voice a chilling caress that echoed in the winds. You think your belief protects you, young one? Do you not see the futility of your fight? I am chaos. I am the end of hope. But David, gathering the strength of his ancestors, remembered the warmth of his mother's embrace, the cheers of his brothers, and the quiet, nightly calls of the stars. With each thought, he anchored himself deeper into the roots of love and community that shielded him. "You may be chaos," he replied, his voice steady, "but I am a son of promise." As if responding to his affirmation, the air thickened with anticipation. The essence of the moment was amplifying, flowing in and around David like a sacred wind. Perhaps, in this face-off, he was not just confronting a singular evil, he was wrestling with all the darkness that had ever sought to extinguish light. With each revelation, he felt a mingling of fear and hope. Could these truths truly offer protection against centuries of despair? David thought back to the stories told around fires, tales of warriors and saints who had encountered darkness and emerged unscathed. They had leaned into faith when the world tried to pull them under. "Your light is flickering," Satan taunted, moving closer, his presence a chilling whisper that danced through David's mind. "Every moment of doubt you've ever felt, every slip in faith, that's where I thrive." "Can you truly claim to be so pure of heart?" David flinched, memories flooding him, moments of doubt, fear, even anger that had once clouded his heart. But as he stood there, those feelings seemed almost distant, water slipping through his fingers. "Those moments do not define me," he declared, his voice rising. "I am more than my doubts. I am the hope that rises even after darkness has come." In that moment, a soft glow began to emanate from David, faint but unmistakable, a flicker of light ignited by his unyielding faith. It pulsed with energy, banishing some of the shadows that had surrounded him. The darkness, while powerful, recoiled as if sensing its own fear. Could this illumination be a reflection of God's grace, a divine response to the courage blossoming in David's heart? As he took a step forward, emboldened by the light, the atmosphere crackled with energy. It was as if the very fabric of the universe acknowledged this transient moment of courage against the bleakness. Yet, questions hung heavy in the air. Would this light be enough to vanquish the shadow entirely? Was his faith truly unshakable in the face of such overwhelming darkness? With the moment tense, filled with anticipation and profound uncertainty, David braced himself for the battle that was to come, yet an echo of doubt lingered in his mind. What happens when the light itself must wrestle with encroaching shadows? How does one hold that flicker close when the tempest of fear rages still? As David stood facing the embodiment of darkness, the tension crackled like the air before a storm. The moonlight cast long shadows, and in those shifting forms, the specters of doubt and despair loomed larger than life. With each pulse of his newfound light, the shadows thinned, yet David felt the weight of uncertainty pressing against his heart. Satan, sensing the shift, smiled a dark, serpentine smile that sent chills down David's spine. "Ah, the glow of faith. It's a fragile flicker, young shepherd. Watch as I extinguish it with a mere whisper." The dark figure inhaled deeply, and the air was alive with a power that seemed to sap David's strength before it could even surge. With a wave of his hand, the earth trembled slightly. "You believe you are free from my grasp, but look at the world around you. Your brothers, your sisters, they suffer. Each pain, each sorrow is a thread in the web I weave. Do you not feel the weight of their despair drawing you down?" David's heart quaked, and the memories flooded back, his people suffering from hunger, illness, and wars that threatened to engulf them. Doubts twisted like vines around his faith, but in that moment of vulnerability, he reached deep within himself, remembering not just the weight of sorrow but the power of unity and resilience. "We are stitched together by our stories, not torn apart by our trials," he proclaimed, his voice rising above the chill in the air. Satan's laughter echoed, a haunting melody of despair. "Stories are mere illusions, woven from dreams. What are they when faced with the coldness of reality? Your light, it flickers in the face of truth, the truth that you are but one against the tide of mankind's suffering, and yet, it is here that I find my strength," David responded, steadied by the collective hope of his people, those whom he had shepherded and fought for. "They are not lost, they are the fire within my heart. Each tear shed becomes a beacon for all who suffer in the dark." In that instant, the ground beneath them shifted, resonating with the echoes of David's determination. To his surprise, Satan took a step back, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his shadowed visage. You think your spirit is unbreakable? I have seen the strongest men falter. Will your voice carry when despair quiets your resolve? David, emboldened, faced the adversary with unwavering eyes. Then let me be your witness, for when shadows loom, there are souls who rise. Like the phoenix from its ashes, we too can emerge, stronger from our trials. As the words left his lips, the flickering light within him surged anew, burning brighter than before. It illuminated the path before him, countering the darkness, transforming fear into an ethereal lighthouse guiding his way. He dared to move closer to Satan, feeling the warmth of his own light, daring to challenge the depths of despair. With newfound conviction, David sensed a deeper truth, one that transcended his individual struggle. Your grip on fear is weak, he declared. You cannot snuff out love, hope, or the recognition that we are all woven into a greater tapestry. Your chaos may seek to divide, but it is in our unity that we find strength. Satan's laughter this time was less certain, tinged with a hint of frustration. And what of those who are lost? Do you claim to save them with your light? What power do you truly wield against the darkness? In that moment, David hesitated, the enormity of the question crashing over him. Was he merely a beacon for himself, or could he truly lead others out of their despair? Could love, community, and faith provide enough protection in a world riddled with suffering and shadows? As the shadows writhed around them, each threatening to engulf the light, David stood at a precipice between the fierce power of his faith and the vast unknown of the darkness around him. What truly lay in store for those who dared to fight, even as darkness whispered its haunting promises? And as he took a breath, readying himself for what came next, an unresolved wonder filled him. Could the light he carried truly overcome the shadows that sought to consume all? As the air quivered between them, David felt the weight of the world's cement around his feet, urging him to falter. Yet emboldened by the flickering flame within, he cast his gaze upon the dark figure before him. The shadows danced restlessly at Satan's feet, an embodiment of despair that reeked of lost hopes and vanquished dreams. Do you truly believe you can stand against me? Satan taunted, his voice a chilling breeze that brushed against David's skin like winter's breath. You think your people's stories can shield you, that their collective hope can fend off the void I represent? Yet here you are, single and alone, isolated amidst the pain that binds them. David's heart quickened with newfound clarity. It is true that I stand alone in this moment, but I am never truly isolated. My strength is not merely my own, it is a reflection of every heart that beats in hope, every hand that reaches out in love. Each story told is a thread binding us together, stronger than your deceits. He felt the warmth of 100 voices swell behind him, as if their collective spirit surged in unison. Suddenly, he recalled the tales of his ancestors, the battles fought in unity, the prayers whispered during the silent nights, and the timeless hope that had anchored them throughout the ages. Could it be possible that their echoes were enough to withstand the encroaching shadow? Satan's serpentine eyes narrowed, anger bleeding through his veneer. Hope can only carry you so far. Look at your past, your failures, your betrayals. Each has left a scar. Do you not bear the weight of your own shortcomings? In that moment, memories flooded David's mind, the anguish of Goliath, the bitterness of his flight from Saul, the shame of his missteps. Doubt crept into his heart like tendrils of mist. What if he was merely a testament to failure draped in dreams? Was it foolish to believe he could deliver his people, when he himself was so flawed? Yet as he pondered, a realization began to dawn upon him. Flaws did not erase his purpose, they merely defined his journey. The very stories that haunted him also bore witness to grace and resilience, the ability to rise, to learn, to transform. And it is through our imperfections that we find our strength, he affirmed slowly, more to himself than to Satan. An admirable notion, Satan hissed with sharp amusement, but one that reveals your weakness. What can a wounded heart offer to those who are lost? Can you truly shine light upon them when your own flame flickers? David hesitated, the weight of his self-doubt pulling at him. Can a flame still light the darkness, even when it is weary? He murmured, still grappling with the truth of his own potential. Every flicker may serve as a guide to another who feels lost. Satan, sensing the shift in David's conviction, took a step closer, his voice lowering to a conspiratorial whisper. If your people are to look to you as their beacon, can you promise to never fail them again? Can you replace the darkness of despair with the unwavering light of clarity? David's pulse quickened as he understood the depth of the challenge before him. There was no promise of perfection in guiding his people, for imperfection was inescapable. The struggle against despair was not merely his to bear, it would be a shared endeavor. And perhaps, in understanding that unity embraced both strength and vulnerability, a deeper power could emerge. Yet as he stood treading the tightrope between hope and despair, he felt a creeping uncertainty rear its head. Was he truly equipped to rise to such a burden? Would the light within him be enough to pierce through the encroaching shadows not only for himself but for all who stood alongside him? The questions lingered like mist in the dawn, each one urging him toward a reckoning. At that moment, under the gaze of the dark figure, David pondered the truth of his resolve. Could he navigate the labyrinth of his own heart, flawed yet fiercely hopeful, to lead others out of their darkness? And as he readied himself for what was to come next, he could not shake the lingering revelation. A flickering light, however small, might still guide a multitude lost in shadow. David stood, suspended in the moment, as the shadows danced threateningly at Satan's feet. The confrontation hung heavy in the air, each heartbeat resonating with the weight of unspoken truths and battles yet to unfold. Within his heart, courage wrestled with fear, and as the figure before him twisted the narrative of despair, David's spirit strained to rise above the darkness. "You taunt me with tales of my shortcomings," he said, his voice gaining strength, "but is it not the very story of my struggles that inspires hope in others? I have fallen, yet I have risen. I have stumbled, but I have learned." With every syllable, David felt the embers of resilience reigniting within him, pushing back against the chill of uncertainty. "I am not merely a vessel filled with dreams. I am a tapestry woven from the threads of pain and redemption." Satan's laughter rang sharp and cruel, echoing through the wilderness. "You speak of unity and hope, but what of those who have lost faith? What do you offer to the broken, to the bereaved? Your strength, however noble, is but a flicker against the infinite night that awaits." David's mind flicked to the faces of his people. He envisioned the families yearning for peace, the parents praying for their children, the weary souls trapped in cycles of despair. Each flicker may indeed be a sacrifice, but if I can be that flame, however small, I will light the way for the next weary traveler, he declared, the conviction in his tone trembling with raw emotion. Satan shifted, his eyes glinting with malicious intent. "And what of the sacrifices you are willing to make? Will your people rally behind a king whose heart still fears failure? Can healing arise from a leader burdened by self-doubt?" David paused. Would his people recognize him as their leader if he dared to show vulnerability? A surge of uncertainty flooded his mind, and he felt the cool grasp of doubt begin to tighten. Could humility truly lead the way, or would it leave him exposed to the same shadows he sought to banish? Perhaps the true strength of a leader is not in their perfection, but in their willingness to confront their own shadows, he replied softly, reflecting on the weight of his journey thus far. "If I can bear my hurts, my mistakes, and stand before them honestly, might they not find courage in their own truths?" Satan's expression twisted, a faint crack in his air of confidence. "Words of weakness, David. Boldness is demanding, it's conquering. Your recollection of past failures could render you a mere specter of fear. Will they not find you wanting if you admit your own pain? In my pain, they may see their own," David replied, his voice steadying. "In the depths of my sorrow, they might find a glimmer of hope, a pathway woven by the reality that we are all flawed yet sacred in our attempts to rise." As he spoke, he envisioned the collective grief and joy of his people, each heart connected by a thread of shared suffering and hope, interwoven through time. Can the tapestry of shared experience provide solace? Can we reshape the narratives that bind us into shackles? David began to question, the complexities of his thoughts forming an intricate spiral. The journey to heal a broken heart, to unite a fractured community, bore profound significance. The struggle against despair seemed less daunting when entrenched in the wisdom gained from shared pain. "And if you fail?" Satan pressed, his voice now a murmur. dripping with disbelief. What then? Will their hopes not drown in the depths of disappointment? Can you bear such a weight without your own heart shattering under it? David breathed deeply, the weight of divine insight gaining clarity amidst the storm of doubt. In that moment, if failure should befall me, I will grasp their hands and tell them of my own humility, for therein lies a deeper truth. The valley of despair must be traversed, for it is there that we cultivate strength together. He felt a spark of unity ignite in his chest, stoking the fire burning bright. As he locked eyes with Satan, he momentarily glimpsed the flickers of the collective spirit soaring above the darker shadows. Could failure truly be integral to the journey, a piece of the essence that shaped hope amongst the lost? With every profound question ascending, the tension crackled between them. David pondered, could a community rise from a leader's willingness to unveil their own scars, growing stronger in shared vulnerability, or would the echoes of fear remain unyielding? In the face of impending uncertainty, what strength could emerge from exposing fragile hearts to the world? Amidst the swirling uncertainty, one reflection stood out: how do we find power in our weaknesses to heal ourselves and each other when the fear of darkness looms ever closer? As David stood firm against the darkness that threatened to engulf him, a stirring wind swept through the wilderness, rustling the leaves of ancient trees. It whispered to him, carrying the prayers of his people, each breath a testament to their yearning for guidance. The spirit of despair hovered in the air, but David breathed deeply, drawing strength from the ancestral echoes around him. Do you hear that? He spoke to Satan, his voice resolute. The wind carries the cries of my people, their hopes interlaced with their fears. It is not simply my journey that unfolds in this moment, it is ours. Each of their voices resounds against the abyss you offer. They call for a shepherd willing to walk beside them through the valley. Satan raised an eyebrow, the corners of his mouth curling into a sneer. But they will not follow a king who doubts his own worth. What is a ruler who cannot conquer his own despair? They seek strength, David, and all you provide is a weak facade wrapped in vulnerability. David reflected on the weight of Satan's challenge. The flames of self-doubt flickered in the depths of his soul, threatening to extinguish the very flicker of hope he wished to ignite. Strength does not always shine brightest in victory, my adversary. It can be found in the courage to reveal our frailty, to stand amidst our brokenness and declare, I am here. At that moment, David's mind swirled with images of his people, their struggles, their victories, and their relentless pursuit of peace. Could he reveal the depth of his struggles without it consuming him? Would they see his authenticity and rally around it, or would it render him vulnerable to the relentless storms of fear? I have fought against giants, he continued, but even they were no match for the demons within. The greatest battles are often those fought in silence, with scars unexamined and feelings unexpressed. If I remain shackled to my reluctance, I deny them a reflection of their own potential for growth. Satan's demeanor shifted ever so slightly, a hint of uncertainty breaking through his facade. But are you prepared to face the scorn? To stand alone as you reveal those very battles? What if they fail to see the strength in your honesty? His voice quivered, perhaps with doubt, or perhaps with curiosity. David's heart pounded in response, and he searched deep within himself for an anchoring truth. A king's greatest honor is not in his ability to command, but in his willingness to connect. I would rather be a beacon for others than a hollow titan looming above them. The very act of opening my heart may serve as a catalyst for their miracles. That he imagined the faces of those he loved, the mothers who lost their children, the farmers who toiled in drought, the warriors who had laid down their arms in hopelessness. If he unveiled his vulnerabilities, could they find a similar strength in confronting their sorrows? Would surrendering to one another create a bond strong enough to weather any storm? Yet, the haunting question loomed, would his message resonate? Would their hearts flutter in recognition of their own uncertainties, or would they turn away, thirsting for a figure of infallibility instead? Silence enveloped him as he contemplated the depth of that risk. Each scar I reveal might echo with theirs, he mused aloud, considering the collision of souls that might arise in that shared authenticity. In walking together, can we weave a net strong enough to catch our failures and rise anew? Might our likenesses and imperfections serve to help us forge a path towards grace? The atmosphere crackled, filled with sacred tension as he and Satan faced one another, two opposing forces locked in a struggle that transcended the immediate battlefield. David held on to the hope that truth and integrity could unravel despair's dark web. If in my weakness they discover their strength could that change the very fabric of our community, a silence stretched between them as David pondered these revelations. He felt the pull of something grander, yet tantalizingly elusive, beckoning him to delve deeper into the intricate dance of hope and despair. What if humility emerged as the catalyst for a collective transformation rather than a solitary burden? Would it cast new light upon the shadows that entwined them all, or would it plunge them further into darkness? In the quiet wilderness, would the power of shared vulnerability guide them safely through the storm, or risk their very foundation? As whispers of the past encircled him, he wondered, in revealing our laments, can we forge through the cold nights together towards dawn, towards the promise of healing? As dawn broke over the wilderness, stretching its golden fingers through the refuge of tangled branches, David felt a stirring within him. The night's confrontation had left behind a residue of contemplation, and he walked beneath the canopy of trees feeling both a weight and a lightness, as if the very air had shifted in resonance with his musings. The world around him thrummed with the rhythm of life waking anew. Birds commenced their chorus of morning songs, their melodies intertwining with the whispers of the wind brushed with dawning light. David pondered how hope could emerge from acknowledgement, the pursuit of understanding one another's wounds in the soft embrace of community. His heart swelled with possibilities, yet doubt flickered like a candle in a draught. Could it be so simple? He thought. Can vulnerability become the bedrock for a stronger kingdom? He could almost hear the collective sigh of his people echoing in harmony with his thoughts, yet strands of trepidation still held him captive. He envisioned his first moments of revealing his heart, the wide eyes of the women and men, each reflecting their own hidden turmoil, a sea of empathy, or perhaps a shore of dismissal, the two paths diverging before him like a fork in the trail. As he walked, he became aware of the stillness around him. The energy of life seemed paused, almost as if nature awaited his next move, the weight of a kingdom balanced on his shoulders. David called to mind the most vulnerable moments he had shared with those he loved. The stories told by the flickering firelight, the laughter that erupted in the face of despair. Memories held in the warm glow of kinship, but also the moments shadowed by fear that exposing one's soul would lead to rejection. Suddenly, a rustle in the brush pulled his attention. Out stepped Jesse, his father, the man whose wisdom had first kindled the flame of courage in his heart. The lines on Jesse's face spoke of trials endured and sorrows faced, but they also bore a softened countenance, a gentleness nurtured over the years. The elder gazed intently at David, almost as if he could see into the depths of his thoughts. "Son, what burdens your spirit this dawn?" Jesse's voice was both firm and nurturing, a familiar balm David had turned to countless times. "I stand on the precipice of revelation, Father. I believe our greatest strength may lie not in our victories, but in the unveiling of our struggles." Yet I'm torn, David confessed, vulnerability flowing between them like an ancient river. Jesse moved closer, rising to the occasion that only a father could. "In your honesty, you risk much, but tell me this, what is greater than a heart anchored in truth? It may invite the tempest, but it can also inspire others to navigate their own storms. You know, trust can flourish in the soil of shared suffering." David felt a stirring of recognition in his father's words. They resonated within him, echoing the truths he had wrestled with under the vast sky. Yet, what if they turn away? What if my candidness invites scorn rather than solace? His voice trembled slightly, the vulnerability of his inquiry serving as a mirror for his father's weary frame. Jesse's eyes sparkled with understanding. "David, consider the light that is born among those who season their hearts with honesty. There is no shame in grappling with despair. We all carry our burdens, son. But together, we may chart a course through the tumult." As the sun rose higher, David envisioned gathering his people, offering them a confessional where they might explore their influence over one another's burdens. He saw laughter mingling with tears as their fragmented hearts interwove in healing, a tapestry of shared humanity rising like a phoenix. Yet doubt still lingered, creeping into the corners of contemplation. The longing for connection danced with fears of rejection, and he wrestled silently with the delicacy of truth. Would they find strength in his fragility, or would they choose to cling to the myths of invulnerability, turning their backs on the potential for growth nurtured in transparency? Could it be that my father's wisdom holds the key? Might who I am dissolve the walls we erect to shield ourselves? He mused, the questions settling like seeds in his heart. As he was enveloped by the warmth of morning, David was left pondering this. In seeking honesty, can we build bridges strong enough to span the chasm of our fears, or will the waters of doubt draw us back into isolation? What miracles reside in the act of sharing our truths, waiting to unfurl if only we express the deepest corners of our souls? As the sun ascended further into the heavens, casting a golden hue over the rugged landscape, David felt an urgent nudge within him, a restless stirring beckoning him to act. The conversations with his father echoed in his thoughts, urging him towards the gathering of his people. It was more than an idea, it was a necessary pilgrimage toward a collective heartbeat, a call to unite through shared vulnerabilities. With renewed determination, he made his way to the encampment. Each step felt burdened yet liberating, as if he were shedding layers of doubt with every movement. The whispers of nature enveloped him, a gentle rustling of leaves, the flutter of wings overhead reminding him of the interconnectedness of all living things. Surely, if a farm of wildflowers could bloom from a single seed, so too could a community flourish from shared truths. Arriving at the clearing, David paused to survey the familiar faces of his people, each etched with their stories, scars, and joys. How had he not seen the depths of their burdens before? He knew their struggles were as varied as the stars scattered across the night sky, yet in each gaze, he hoped to find a glimmer of trust. Friends, he began, his voice steady despite the rapid beating of his heart. The crowd fell silent, curiosity dancing in their eyes. Today, I wish to share not just my thoughts but a vital piece of my spirit, my own struggles and fears, the shadows that linger at the edges of my crown. For I stand here not as a flawless king, but as a fellow traveler on our shared journey. He felt the weight of apprehension in the air, thick and palpable. Would his honesty lay bare the wounds of others? Conversely, would they clench the door of their hearts closed, fearing the vulnerability he was inviting? David pressed on. We are a people bound by trials, and it is within these moments of shared vulnerability that we may find our greatest strength. Together, we can forge a tapestry of our experiences, rich with the colors of resilience and authenticity. As he spoke, he searched their faces, eager for signs of acceptance. In the eyes of some, he encountered warmth, in others, uncertainty flickered. David could sense the gravity of his unveiling. Would they lean into the weight of their realities, or would they shy away into the shadows of denial? A woman from the crowd stepped forward, her hands clasped at her heart. King David, she said, her voice trembling, my own burdens feel monumental, yet you stand before us, bearing your soul. How do we even begin this journey of shared suffering you describe? A ripple of murmurs spread across the gathering, alive with empathy and questions. David acknowledged her courage with a nod, recognizing that vulnerability had breached the dam of silence, and within it lay the seed of connection. I believe we start by exchanging our stories, however imperfect they may be. We create space for each other, a sanctuary where our laughter can mingle with our tears without fear of judgment. The woman's resolve seemed to strengthen. Then I shall lead us into this space. My own story has been tinged with despair. I shall share my truth if it means creating a bond among us. As she began to share her heart, David noticed the surrounding faces soften, lightening under the gravity of her release. Whispers of uncertainty transformed into nods of understanding, raw emotion surged through the crowd like a river breaking free. One by one, others began to speak, revealing their fears, regrets, and ultimately their hopes for healing. And as the warmth of shared humanity enveloped David, he could not shake the feeling of divine oversight guiding this unfolding. He marveled at how faith could reside in the cracks of brokenness, how revelation often lay on the other side of fear. Laughter rang out intermittently, mingled with tears, creating a symphonic portrait of communal kinship, the kind of melody that could only be birthed from honesty. Yet, lurking beneath the joyous current was a twinge of anxiety, an unyielding whisper that reminded him of the waters of doubt. Untold stories remained hidden, and cracks of hesitation could still threaten to splinter the connection they had begun to forge. would the liberation of truth be strong enough to sustain the weight of unspoken fears? What would happen when the inevitable walls began to rise once more? In pondering the shared experience of vulnerability, David was left with a question that tethered itself to his heart: can the act of revealing our truths truly illuminate the path from isolation to belonging, or will the shadows of fear always seek to reclaim their dominion, pulling us back into silence? As the sun dipped towards the horizon, its fiery hues mingling with the muted tones of dusk, David and his people remained gathered, still enveloped in the warmth of their newfound honesty. The air was thick with emotion, and the stories shared had sown a fragile yet palpable bond among them. Yet, as the day waned, another feeling began to creep in, a sense of heaviness, a weight not solely from the burdens of their narratives, but of something deeper, more ominous. With the last of the sunlight stretching its reach, David sensed a pivotal shift in the atmosphere. A chilling breeze danced through the encampment, stirring the leaves and causing a few faces to shift with sudden unease. Was it merely the approach of night that instilled this apprehension, or something more insidious lurking in the shadows? He glanced around, noting the flickering expressions of uncertainty mirrored by those who had, moments ago, found courage in sharing their truths. As the fire blazed taller, illuminating faces with its flickering glow, David took a moment to breathe deeply, drawing strength from the flames. He felt an unexplainable pull toward the edges of the gathering, as if the very earth beneath his feet was urging him forward. Was this the divine calling he sensed earlier, or was there a lurking vulnerability waiting to rise amidst their newfound openness? "Friends," he spoke once more, his words steady despite the inexplicable disquiet. "As we share our burdens, let us not forget that we must also guard our hearts against the shadows that seek to encroach upon our light. It is in our illumination that darkness stirs, and it is ever uncertain if it seeks to disrupt our healing." At that very moment, an older man, his voice like gravel yet filled with conviction, interjected, "And what of the shadows, David? Can we truly navigate this journey of transparency without facing what haunts us?" The question hung in the air, thick and heavy. David's gaze shifted from one person to another, recognizing the depth of unspoken fears still residing within the gathering. "It is an age-old struggle," he mused, reflected in the glistening embers of the fire. "For as we gather strength in truth, the shadows may rise, craving dominion over our hearts once again. They whisper lies steeped in shame, dread, and worthlessness." A murmur of agreement rustled through the crowd, igniting a sense of shared fear. They were wrestling not just with their narratives, but also with the malevolent force of despair that sought to reclaim their truths and entomb them once more in silence. David resolved then to acknowledge that this journey was not merely emotional but deeply spiritual, entwined with unseen forces at play. "Let us remember," he continued, "that light and darkness are intertwined. But while the darkness may loom, we are given the gift of fellowship to combat the call of isolation. Together, we can stand as a testament against despair, for in unity lies our strength." He beckoned them to lean in and share not just the stories of burdens but also of times when shadows had threatened their spirits. As each spoke of their encounters with fear, anxiety, and doubt, be it in doubt of purpose, love, or worth, the growth of understanding blossomed anew, juxtaposed by adversity. Yet beneath their shared reflections lingered a deeper question, an echo within David's heart: was this enough to fortify them against future shadows? As he listened to their stories, he sensed that dark forces stirred not just around them, but within them, waiting for moments of isolation to seize control. And so, as the fire cast a protective glow over the assembly, David contemplated the persistent tension between light and shadow, connection and solitude. Could their moment of truth truly shield them against the unseen storms that rivaled their unity? As they shared their experiences, David became aware of the deeper truth lurking beneath their fiercer revelation yet to materialize, but one that invited him, and perhaps all, deeper into the mystery of faith and existence. Could the act of seeking communion with one another ultimately transform isolation's grip into resilience, or would the shadows ever find a way back, seeking to fracture their fragile bonds? As twilight deepened and the stars began to pierce the velvet sky, David stood at the heart of his gathering, surrounded by the echoes of shared stories and unspoken fears. The flame crackled, its dance illuminating faces that bore the weight of both burden and resilience. Each flicker of light cast long shadows, not only upon the earth but also within each heart present, reminding them that to be vulnerable was to invite the darkness that could threaten to consume their newfound unity. Yet, as doubts circled like darkened hawks in the silence, an unyielding strength blossomed within David. He felt the affirming bond that had formed amid their confessions, a tapestry of courage stitched together by the threads of vulnerability. It was time to take a decisive step, to challenge the whispers that sought to paralyze their collective spirit. "My friends," David began, his voice steady yet impassioned, "our stories have woven an intricate map of our shared existence. In this bond, we possess the power not only to face our individual shadows but to confront the darkness that looms over our community." The weight of his words resonated, a palpable energy captivating the listeners, drawing them closer. They felt the stirring within themselves, a presence growing bolder in the warmth of shared vulnerability. "We stand here not only as individuals but as a collective vessel. Each of us carries the hearts of many layers of struggle, hope, and redemption. Together, we can ignite a flame strong enough to illuminate the darkest nights." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, hearts emboldened by his call to unity. David took a moment to gather his thoughts, recognizing the delicate balance between triumph and despair that had characterized their journey thus far. "But let us not forget," he cautioned, his tone shifting to reflect the gravity of their undertaking. "In opening our hearts, we must also open our eyes. The shadows will seek to reclaim their dominion, whispering doubts and insecurities, urging us to silence our voices once more." As murmurs of fear flitted across the circle, David met each gaze with unwavering resolve. "But we are not made of glass, we are forged in fire. Each scar, every wound, has given rise to resilience. Embrace your shadows, not as shackles, but as testaments of your journey. When darkness comes, let us stand hand in hand to face it together." The flickering flames pulsed in rhythmic agreement, igniting a spark in the hearts gathered. And in that moment, the spirit of hope began to transcend their fears as they took in the profound truth that emerged from David's proclamation. If the shadows sought to envelop them, then the light they had created through connection would serve as both shield and weapon of defense against the encroaching darkness. One by one, they began to rise, reclaiming their stories, each thread woven into a grander tapestry of unity, resilience, and collective strength. "I will not hide my pain," spoke a farmer, fingers trembling yet resolute. "For in sharing it, I may help another find the power to rise again." "I too have felt the weight of despair," chimed a woman. "But through my fear, I found community, and through community, I found hope." As the circle of voices grew, it became a powerful chorus, dismantling the fortress of darkness, piercing through the fog of doubt. Each resignation to vulnerability transformed into a beacon of empowerment, illuminating pathways forged in transparency. And amidst this gathering of light, laughter burst forth, mingling with tears, a kaleidoscope of humanity. Yet amidst the burgeoning joy, David sensed an energy shift, a presence almost tangible that lurked beyond the edges of their unity, a reminder of the darkness they had faced and would continue to confront. It dawned upon him then that while they had openly embraced their vulnerabilities and formed an unbreakable bond, they must also prepare for the battles that lay ahead. "Tonight, we will not only celebrate our connection but prepare ourselves for the overshadowing storms," he declared, rallying their spirits. "Let us fall back on one another, speak our truths, and fortify our hearts with love. When the shadows invade, let us remind each other of the light we carry, a light that cannot be extinguished." As their voices rose in unison, each member of the gathering began to share the tools they had found in faith songs, prayers, affirmations, and stories that had illuminated their paths in dark times. It became a plethora of overcoming, an arsenal of hope that would guard against the darkness as surely as the bonds of their collective spirit. As they shared this sacred knowledge with one another, David envisioned the day to come when they would emerge from the confines of despair, stepping forth into the light. With each revelation, they fortified their collective resolve. Together they would face the shadows, together they would stand tall against the echoes of doubt. The flame before them symbolized their purpose, flickering fiercely in the growing darkness outside their circle, yet shining brightly as an unyielding force within. In the stillness of the twilight, David whispered fervent prayers to the heavens, a plea for strength, unity, and guidance. Silently, he vowed to be the shepherd his people needed, committed to walking beside them as they faced their long battle with darkness together, and in that moment of nightfall, a profound revelation arose within David's spirit, a realization that transformed his heart forever. They were not just individuals wrestling with shadows, they were a community bound by the courage to confront darkness, a tapestry interwoven with both light and shadow, beautifully imperfect yet united in purpose. As dawn approached, David spoke once more, "May we honor both our light and our shadow, for they shape who we are. And though darkness may come, with each heartbeat, each story shared, we remind one another that hope is fierce, and together we are unbreakable." With laughter blending with the rising sun's soft touch, the air thrummed with new possibilities, and each heart swelled with resolve. They would rise, not only for themselves but in the name of those who had been lost, those who had feared, for every soul entwined in their journey. In unity, they would weave a brilliance against all forms of darkness, standing as one, unwavering and relentless, a reflection of hope in a world often shadowed by despair. In that sacred gathering, they emerged not just as an assembly but as a movement, a testimony that darkness could never vanquish the light, for love, shared stories, and unity could conquer even the fiercest shadows. And may that truth shimmer eternally in their hearts, guiding them toward a horizon painted in hope, illumination, and the boundless embrace of togetherness.